You're listening to episode 26 of the Small and Supercharged podcast with Ria Freeman. Well, hello and welcome to today's podcast. Today we are talking all about going native. We're talking about posting natively on different platforms and why it's important. Don't worry. Actually, I'm sure going native means something completely different. Yes, it does. To adopt the lifestyle or outlook of local inhabitants, especially when dwelling in a colonial region. Yeah, we're probably not going to do that. We're going to really stick to native content today. So today we're going to talk about the value of posting natively and whether that maybe increases your reach, your engagement, or anything else. So before we get into it, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to explain. So when I say post natively, posting natively, anything like this, I mean that what you are doing is you are making your content and posting it how the platform wants you to use it. So let's say you've written a blog on your website and you share the link to Facebook. That's not posting natively, because what you're doing is you're sharing your content from your website onto Facebook. That means that realistically, what happens with my blog when I share it onto Facebook is that it doesn't display that well. When it puts the link up, it's not great. It's okay, but it doesn't quite look how I want. And with different URLs that you share, it kind of does it in a different way. With video again, if you post your video onto YouTube, that's native to YouTube. But if you then shared that URL over onto your Facebook, for example, that would not be native, and it changes it when you put the link up. The way it displays, it changes it around, and it isn't native. So obviously I'm not actually saying that you should only post natively, believe it or not. We're going to talk about ways that you can make content from different platforms appear native, or at least give people on the platform that you're sharing it onto to get the traction back to the main hub where the content came from. How you can create things that are native to drive them back to the core, or you can post natively, or you can even use the one piece of your pillar content and just repurpose it a little bit so it is native on the different platforms. I feel I should be getting a sponsorship for the word native. It's just important to be aware, I think. So we're going to talk about the benefits of posting natively, why you don't post natively, why you shouldn't necessarily always post natively, and how to create native bits of content to drive people to the pillar content that do appear to be native. Oh, I've said that word far too much and I feel it's going to get a lot worse. So the question is, does posting natively increase your reach? And to be quite honest, I believe it does. And there's quite a bit of evidence around that. So I'm going to talk about Facebook particularly. I'm going to talk about video. So not all that long ago, well, probably a few years ago now, Facebook didn't host videos. So you put your video on YouTube, which is, quite a sizable video platform, and you would then share that link onto Facebook. And Facebook would take that URL and it would make it nice, and it looked nice in your feed. And it just looked good, and people could press on it, click on it, and they could play the video. It was lovely. I enjoyed it. Then things changed, and now if you share a link from your YouTube channel onto Facebook, it doesn't display it in a particularly aesthetic way. It's a link, it works like a link, but it doesn't look particularly good. And I think when you're talking about anything to do with social media, you want it to look good, because you've got to get people to stop scrolling and engage with your content. And if it doesn't look as good as it could, you've got to really consider that. So not only does it mean that when you you share links from other platforms and you put them on other platforms, that often they are not displayed in the most aesthetic way. But there are also other advantages to posting natively. So let's again take the example of video. So example one would be you put your video on YouTube and you share the link to Facebook. Doesn't display it particularly nicely, but it functions. Option two, upload the same video. So it can be exactly the same video you've put on YouTube. You don't need to do 2 edits with this. Upload it natively to Facebook, which means it will be hosted on Facebook. Upload it natively to there. What this means is that when it has uploaded and done all of its clever stuff and processed, it will appear in your feed or in your friend's feed, however it displays, as a full-size video, completely taking up the grid, just like with a full-size image. And that's really cool. But more than that, what you can also get with Facebook is the autoplay function, which means that when people start scrolling past, it automatically starts playing if they've set their preferences to that. So rather than you expecting people to go and physically click on the video to make it play like you would do with YouTube, it'll just start playing. And if you've got really engaging content in the first few seconds, the chances of you getting people to actually stop scrolling are greatly increased rather than a sort of badly cropped picture of your YouTube video. Another thing you can do is that you can add subtitles, and obviously you can add these outside in the editing process as well. But with Facebook, it has got a really cool generate function. So when you go in to edit the video, you can actually go into captions, I think they're called closed captions and subtitles, and you can ask it to generate your subtitles. Now, a lot of people view Facebook on silent. So if you have got the subtitles on your video, it will mean that even on silent, your video is engaging and has that potential for people to actually stop scrolling. I have watched many a video by reading the subtitles, because if I'm, anywhere, I rarely actually have the noise on my phone. So it means that I can engage with the video, but not just me, a lot of people as well. It's not all about me. So yeah, there's a generate function, and then what you can do, and do this if you use a generate function, is you can go in and you can review what it thinks you've said. Do go in and review what it said you said, because I honestly think that the technology and the way it is hearing, I guess, has improved so much since they first brought it out. I'm noticing I'm having to do less and less editing, but I am still needing to edit. And especially if you've got a quirky name, or if you have got, you're using technical terms or quite niche language, it won't necessarily pick that up. Also, accents. Sometimes you say words, and if you have a particular accent, they can sound like something else. So always have a good read through. It's really easy to amend it as well. So you can just click on it and you can literally type what you want to type. But because it's a native video, you can do this inside the app. So that's a perk for you as well, but also a perk for the reader when we're talking about the viewer, when we're talking about whether it increases reach and engagement. If you can upload natively, it autoplays and it's got subtitles versus a still image, which is pretty badly cropped from YouTube. Just which one do you think is going to create the biggest interest? It's going to be the one that works, the one that plays natively. Another example, I guess, would be on Twitter. Now, you can get something which I use it's an applet from something called If This Then That. It's IFTTT. Is it .com? I think it's probably .com. And this does kind of bridge the gap a little bit sometimes. So when I post on Instagram, it posts across to Twitter, which is something that I would go, oh, no, don't do that. The only reason I use it and allow it is because it takes the image across as well. So it posts the image in a native way on Twitter. Would it be better if I went in, uploaded it separately? Yeah, it would, because it does link to the longer caption on Instagram. So it is not perfect, but the fact it carries the image across rather than so many of these linked accounts just show a link. So if you post from Facebook and you ask it to share to Twitter, it just has a Facebook link. It takes a lot for somebody to click that link and to leave the platform that they're on. And having a couple of lines of text with no image is, in my opinion, it's not likely to encourage somebody to click that. At least if I've got an image that's moved across, I feel like I'm giving someone either they've got all the story there because they've got a nice image to look at, or I'm giving them a reason to click and to come over to Instagram rather than trusting my judgment on it. So yes, and I think as well, another thing about the native element is that it's not just whether you post in that platform, but it's whether you respect the platform and what it allows. So let's nip to Instagram for a minute. So Instagram, when you look at your grid, you've got all the little squares, but you can post portrait images in Instagram. And if you do that, it takes up more of the screen when people are scrolling, which is a big benefit. So I like to post portrait images. Doesn't always work out for me. Sometimes they're landscape, but if you can post a portrait image, it can be really beneficial. To me, that's making the most of the platform and the way it's been designed, which is, again, the whole native thing. Alternatively, you could maybe post a skinny landscape image, or you could post an image that would fit better on a different platform, and it would still work, but it wouldn't display in the optimal way. And that's a really key part of it too. So if you're looking to really major in on it, that's the thing to look at. I mean, if you go into something like Canva's amazing. It's got lots of different templates for the different social media platforms, and you'll see they're all slightly different. There is one which I do use if I'm doing quotes or graphics, which is a square, which is I think 800 pixels by 800 pixels, and that kind of ticks all the boxes. But if you're making something specifically for Instagram, specifically for Pinterest, you can get a lot more length, you can get a lot more in the vertical space, whether that's an image or an infographic or something. And again, that's much more likely to increase your reach because you're getting more information across in the way the platform's designed. So again, think about that. So now the question is, should you only post natively? Well, in a perfect world, largely yes, mostly. But also, it's not a perfect world, so there's a good argument for no. So yes, because you're going to get greater reach. Because basically you are making sure that your content functions completely on that platform in the best possible way without anyone having to go anywhere else. And that's lovely. But if you are trying to get people to your website, to your blog, to sign up to your newsletter, to do anything else like this which takes them away from the platform, obviously only posting on that platform and not using that content anywhere else isn't going to achieve your objective. We will come back to that. So if you want to get the greatest reach, you want to post natively or as natively as possible. If you want to get the most engagement, you also want to do that. However, there are a few buts. So if you really, really, really want to grow your YouTube subscribers, let's say, posting the same video on YouTube and the same video on Facebook might not encourage people to move from Facebook to YouTube to gain your subscribers. But what you could do is you could record a short video that you could post natively to Facebook. Maybe you could do a snippet of your longer video and post that onto Facebook with a link to your YouTube video. But you've created a really good teaser that's going to do all the things that we talked about earlier, autoplay, subtitles, all those things, that's going to encourage people to click over. So you're sort of bridging both gaps there. Maybe if you want to share your blog, you don't just post the blog link and say, I've written a blog, look at this. Actually talk about what you've written about. Maybe if you've done a top 5 of something, talk about one of the points that you've talked about. So you're getting people engaged with what you're talking about to encourage them to click over to see the longer form content. That's a really good way of kind of bridging the gap. So getting people to move where you want them to move, but giving them the best possible reasons to make that move, and harnessing the way that the platform's been built to allow you to do that as well. And I think that's what we all should be aiming at, either posting natively or making sure we have a native element to our content to allow people to engage with us. And one other really good point here is something like IGTV, which is Instagram TV. So if, going back to the video example, you posted landscape as you would do in YouTube, landscape as you would do in Facebook, IGTV has been designed for portrait. So you could either post your horizontal video, or you could sort of crop it in and post it vertically, or you could re-record it all for the second time. Now, what you can do is you could actually edit it so that the background, that there are ways you can edit it so although your video is still landscape in the center, the rest of it around is portrait and takes up the space. But by putting a little bit more effort, maybe making sure when you film your landscape video, you are in one half of the screen, making it much easier for you to make it into a portrait image, a portrait video, it's just being aware. It's just trying to do your best. Because the thing is, we all only have a finite amount of time. So again, when I talked about the images earlier, yes, portrait images are really good for Instagram because they take up more space. That's really, really good. But if you want to use the same image or the same graphic, let's say, on a few different platforms on your blog and things like that, you might be better off creating a square graphic, which will still look really good on Instagram. But it means that you can repurpose it in a much better and more effective way. Or if you're doing something on Pinterest, you might think, actually, I just want to make sure it's on Pinterest rather than creating specific things each time, because Pinterest isn't where all your focus is. So there are reasons why you might not be posting natively, but there are also little hacks that you can do that can help to bridge the gap there to make people want to get to where your pillar content's held, but you're promoting it in a native way. I have said native an awful lot. I think I'm going to go. So I hope that's helped. I think it's a really important thing to understand. Whether you do it or not is a different thing. Whether you have the time to do it or not is a different thing. But also, if you're aware of the scope, I guess, at the planning stage, it's a lot easier for you. So if you are, for example, when I edit this podcast, I would do the show notes. So I am making sure that I've got a blog about it. I will pull out 2 or 3 quotes from it that I will put onto graphics on Canva, which I will then put onto my Instagram. Sorry, had a bit of a block there. Then Instagram will post automatically to Twitter for me. And then I can share it down to my Facebook as and when. I'll be promoting the podcast, but I'm creating native content that engages with the platform in the correct way. So yeah, whether you do or you don't decide to post natively from now on is completely your call. And I really do understand the issues with your time, because our time is so stretched. We need to make it really work for us. And sometimes creating one bit of content is the way to do that. But if we can factor into our planning that actually we want to create a short snippet for Facebook, or we want to create a portrait short video for IGTV or for our Instagram stories at the time of editing, at the time of filming, it's much easier to create those little native snippets that can drive people to your pillar content without you then having to bodge something afterwards. Because it's much easier if you've got everything prepped, you're filming, you can do it in a lot more effective way. Equally with images, maybe you take an image, but maybe instead of just doing one edit and making it the perfect size for Facebook, you also do a much longer one that you're going to put on Instagram, or maybe you do another one that you can use that's even longer, which you can use as an infographic, or you can put a quote over. But because you know about the different nuances of each platform, you can just create content in a much more efficient way, which is also more native and more likely to get you the reach and the engagement that you want. So that is today's podcast, all about if it matters to post natively, to go native. I think you'll agree it does, but I also think, hopefully, you'll agree that you have to not kill yourself over this. You have to do the best you can do, and thinking of canny ways that can help people get to your content the way you want it to is such a big deal and such a game changer. If you want more information like this, obviously come on over and join the free Sauna Supercharged group. It's full of lots of lovely people there who are all very helpful. And if you want even more information and knowledge bundles, live workshops, all sorts like that, do have a look at my mastermind group. If you go to my website, which is realfreedompr.co.uk, it is the Small and Supercharged tab there. Click that, go and have a look, and any questions, do reach out. Thank you so much for listening to this week's, and I'll see you next week for an interview one. Take care.